Okay, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
I can't hear nothing.
Try it again, so. Okay, you got it. Okay, Sully, we're ready when you are.
Flag behind me. I'm watching you, Steve. Just prayers.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag.
of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm trying to call up that email that you sent out.
Okay, I'm going to... Okay, if, with the board's permission, I'll read the statement on behalf of the chair while he calls up that email. Is that okay? Anybody have an objection to that? Okay. So, while the chairman calls up his email, which I sent to him, which is he needs to read a disclaimer at the beginning of each meeting, and we also, any vote that we take remotely requires a roll call vote. So I'm going to read the statement. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, this meeting of the Dudley Board of Selectmen will be conducted in total or in part via remote participation. Specific information in the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at dudleyma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner. As usual, via cable access TV, Charter Spectrum Channel 192, and/or posted link at dudleyma.gov, which will be posted immediately following this meeting. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. And for this vote, because we're all remote, roll call vote will be required. So when the chairman calls the meeting to a vote, he simply has to call upon each member participating to get a yea or nay. Are we good, Mr. Chairman?
Continue on with the statement, or should I call the meeting to call vote for participation purposes?
We can go right to, yeah, we can go right past, we've done the Pledge of Allegiance, we've read the statement, Mr. Chairman. Item 4 is a Scribner's error. I move that to item 6. So we can go right on to new business, which is item 5, with our town moderator, Chris Starchewski. Everyone has a copy of the moderator's declaration. And before he makes that declaration, I would ask, through the chair, if Mr. Starchewski could explain why it's necessary to make this declaration.
Thank you, Mr. Ruda. Through the chair, Mr. Sullivan. Based on the governor's declaration that, sorry? You guys hear me okay?
We can hear you fine.
Okay, fine.
Somebody go on mute.
Based on the governor's declaration, with gatherings of 25 or more people, we're within the window of concern at this, March 30 meeting. At this point, we'll be looking to delay, continue through April 27th. in my declaration. If you'd like me to read that in its entirety, I can do that for the record.
I think we have to, through the chairman, I think we have to read it. The town moderator has to read the declaration into the record.
Hold on, Mr. Mark.
Sure thing, Mr. Sullivan. This declaration being issued pursuant to the authority vested in the town moderator by the provision of general law, chapter sections 10A. I hereby provide notice to the determine that this is to be public health proposed by the public coronavirus to continue 2020 special meeting until 7 p.m. on April 27, 2020 in the Dudley Municipal Complex, 71 West Main Street, Dudley, in the Veterans Memorial Hall, 321. I have issued this declaration after careful and considerable deliberation about implications of the rapid spread of the disease, present lack of containment to most vulnerable populations inherent in public gatherings at this time. Various professional sports leagues, universities, school districts, cultural institutions, and events, and more have been canceled, closed, or temporarily normal operations. Quality, various public private entities operations and continued spread of the virus. Based on recommendations from the governor, among others, that large gatherings be avoided, including the governor's ban on gatherings of more than 25 people, and the declaration of a state of emergency in the Commonwealth, I consulted with public safety officials through Mr. Ruda, the board of the members of the select board, reviewed guidance from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health and the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. A significant consideration in this decision includes the importance of the town meeting as a legislative body of the town, and my obligation to ensure that all who wish to participate are able, particularly vulnerable members of our community. Being respectful of the health, safety, and well-being of all the voters of the town, therefore, I have determined in accord with General Chapter 39, Sections 10A, that the rapidly evolving situation involving COVID-19 and some voters will be unable to attend the March 20, and that they will be the opportunity to participate in such meeting. A delay at this time will avoid forcing voters to choose between participating in the town meeting and managing their health in a manner most appropriate for them. To provide as much advance notice as possible and in order to allow the town the greatest period of time to evaluate the situation, this formal declaration will be deemed to be issued and take effect on April 27, 2020, the scheduled date of the special town meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
You're welcome.
We'll vote on that. The declaration is enough, right, Jonathan?
So the declaration is enough. What it does is it postpones the special meeting that we had scheduled for the 30th. It postpones it to the, was it April 17th, Mr. Moderator, or the 27th?
April 27th.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And our advice there is if we need to continue, if we need to do another declaration, Mr. Chairman, then we'll do that.
Do I do 5 people, or do I call for a roll call vote for?
Yeah, if we, Mr. Chairman, if you wouldn't mind, we'd like to go right down and ratify some of the actions that I took as a result of the state of emergency that was declared, which included remote participation, open meeting law. I'd like to ratify some of the procedures that I put together. We can always change them at any point, but for now, I'd like the board to just ratify the remote participation procedure that, as you can see, we're working on every day, and we're going to certainly hopefully get a little better at this and try to improve it. And to ratify the open meeting law, which allows us to meet remotely the way we are. If you wouldn't mind, Mr. Chairman.
That the Board of Selectmen, as a chief executive officer of the town, order the ongoing boards and committees in the town, remote participation in accordance with the requirements of 940, 29.10, and further to authorize all boards and committees to utilize remote participation in the manner of the governor, March 12, 2020, executive order, suspending certain provisions of the meeting law, and as directed and authorized to all town of Dudley boards, commissions, committees, and staff by the town administrator. Open meeting law. Move that the open meeting law notice be posted by boards and committees under general law 30A, section A, 20, including language similar to the following: pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order to suspend certain provisions of General Law, Chapter 38, 18. This meeting of the Dudley Board of Selectmen will be conducted in total or in part via remote participation. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at dudleyma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner: as usual, via cable access, Charter Spectrum 192, and/or link to dudleyma.gov following the meeting. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Further move that a statement similar to the following be made at the beginning of each board and committee meeting. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order concerning on strict limitation of the number of people who may gather in one place. Meetings in the town of Dudley are being conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. And further, the chair reminds the board or commission that any meeting where remote participation is utilized pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order must be posted and coordinated to the town administrator. All meetings must include taking of roll call vote, and as always, detailed minutes must be taken. At this point, I call for a roll call vote. Stephen Sullivan, aye.
John Marcy, aye. Unmute Carrie.
Kerry Siganovich, aye.
Jay Johnson, aye.
At this point, I will turn over Section 1 under 5, Section C, Town Administrator's Report. Mr. Ruda.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Board members, I wanted to have a chance to go over our remote participation plan, which we are experiencing firsthand to date. But I more so wanted to do it for the public and let them know how they can access our meetings. Certainly, as we work towards a better solution than we have tonight, they can access the meetings broadcast live as normal through cable access TV. Because of the governor's order, all members of all boards are allowed to participate remotely and encouraged to do so. The only participation allowed under the order by the governor, by the members of the public, are those type of hearings and meetings where participation by the public is an absolute necessity, such as the special town meeting that you heard the town moderator postpone tonight, or a public hearing, or any other sort of hearing where the whole purpose of the meeting would be to hear from the public. So, to the extent that we can continue on, and we will, we're going to have to use means such as these to conduct our meetings. I've asked all town boards and committees, wherever possible, to postpone or open and continue their meetings at least until April. And I've asked them to provide me with an agenda so that we can try to schedule or reschedule these meetings in April in a manner that's most convenient for the public to watch it all at once, and for us to get all the technical ducks in a row, so to speak, and be able to broadcast it on time, because it's no small undertaking for any of us to have to operate in this manner, and figure it out over the course of the last 10 or 12 days at the most. The next issue is the closure of town hall services and the availability of services. So while the town hall is closed to the public, we're still at work. And to the degree we were able to notify the public of the changes in their ability to get services, I think we've still seen a pretty decent amount of business utilizing the website, email, phone calls, and some limited access to the police lobby, which Chief Wayne can talk about a little bit when his section comes up. So we are still open for business. We are staffed. And to find out specifically how to access a specific town service that you would normally be able to walk in and receive, I would strongly encourage members, residents to go to dudleyma.com, and I hope everybody can see that on their screens right now. I'm sorry, not .com. It's dudleyma.gov. dudleyma.gov, and right at the top there's a red banner marked COVID-19 Virus Town Hall Services Information Pages. You can click on that banner and scroll down to the information page, and you'll see a listing of how to access town hall services. All members of the board received this prior to my publishing it. It gives an overview. I'm not going to go over it point by point. I just want to show everybody what it looks like and where it is. It gives an explanation about how we're going to conduct town hall meetings. Reassures the public that public safety is in full operation with no changes in their level of service except internally. Gives a couple of blurbs about anyone who's symptomatic with COVID-19 or type symptoms. And then it gives a whole section on guidance by department to access town services. So, for example, the Board of Assessors, which is up on the screen now, we have 2 email addresses, we have 2 phone numbers, and they're staffed during normal business hours. The business hours are posted below that. And it gives a quick explanation about how someone in person can, well, virtually in person, can continue to access services, for example, from the assessor's office. It says, the following forms are available here and online, and when I say here, this information is available in the police department lobby. It can be completed and dropped off in the drop-off box, which for most residents, they may remember that there's a drop-off box in the police station lobby to receive tax bills and that sort of thing. Well, now it's been opened up to all departments so that paperwork can be moved back and forth. I'm trying to explain everything, Mr. Chairman, without going over too much of a time limit. Information on how to access our public meetings like tonight. A little blurb here about public gatherings. That changed from last week. Excuse me. We've updated the information accordingly. March 2020 meetings, there's a public notice here that shows, gives a little blurb like the chairman read earlier about suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. And then from time to time, as we update these meetings, you can look at this document and the public will be able to see all the meetings, when they're scheduled for, when they're going to be rescheduled, and how they can be accessed. It shows the method of remote meeting and so forth. Okay. Another item that I wanted to make sure I said publicly, Mr. Chairman, was it's very important for people under these conditions where we're having social distancing and we're being ordered to reduce the number of people who can be gathered together at one point, and we close the doors of the town hall. It's very important, if they have not previously done so, to take advantage of signing up for social media. That's the town has a Twitter account. If some people are not able to do that, I'm sure that somebody could help them do that. From a neighbor, a member of their family could walk them through it even on the phone. The Facebook, the town has a Facebook page which we're working towards utilizing more and more every day. People should have internet access. When in doubt, they should look to dudleyma.gov. All of the information that we put out is not only distributed to the press, but it's put out on our town website. So I strongly encourage people to go there and access that information. And again, you can access the information on how to get in touch with any town service and town office. We're open for business as it stands tonight, and you can call. And I would also, I'm going to once again promote the RAVE community alerting system that we have. You can go to the website, you can go to the fire department's website and sign up for that, or you could call the fire department directly, and they'll help you they'll walk you through it. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to do item B. I'm going to turn it over to the fire chief, who got some new information on declaring a local state of emergency. So, Chief, if you could take over, I'd appreciate it.
Can I wait until I get to mine? I was going to put that in my subsection there, or do you want me to just talk about that right now? Can you hear me?
Yep.
John?
Yep, that's fine with me. It's up to the board.
That's fine.
I just go over, because I got a pretty big report, so I was just going to go over the local state of emergency when you got to me on the item list.
Okay, great. Mr. Chairman, do you mind if we move to Tom Purcell?
Nope. Appreciate doing that. All you, Tom.
Thank you. Good evening, gentlemen. And I'm going to try to keep it brief. With the governor's order of eliminating or minimizing social distancing, creating an air of social distancing by closing taverns and restaurants and the schools. We've gone around to each one of the facilities in Dudley, in Charlton, no, Dudley, in Dudley to to reassure the businessmen that this was what the procedure called for, and if they had any questions, we made ourselves available for it. It was all pretty received at this time, but no pushback from any of the people that are affected. We have information from the schools about their lunch program. Their lunch program is going to be a grab-and-go setup, and they're going to be continuing that as long as they can. The competitive procurement programs have been relaxed. They're under these emergency for procuring medical supplies or equipment or anything that we need. There's been a relaxation on that, we've heard. There's been an announcement of preliminary funding release. $15 million has been released to our area. Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission is the host entity that'll be the handing down of the monies. It'll go in a step down progression from some of the cooperatives that are available in the 40 towns that we're going to be dealing with, down to the freestanders. We happen to be one of the freestanders. We have a shortage on some of our durable medical equipment that we've got requests in already to Region 2 emergency preparedness. We're looking for masks, and we're looking for gowns and gloves. So all the places of assembly presently have been addressed. Child care facilities have just received the order today that all of the child care facilities will be closed, the nursery schools and the daycare. It's been brought to my attention that EEC, who regulates the child care industry, has announced a program to be able to have child care services available for emergency personnel or people that are working to provide services for the coronavirus system. To date, the public health nurse has no reports of confirmed the COVID-19, and that's about it.
Thanks, Tom. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Tom.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
I didn't catch that. Who said that?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, Chris Chesky, moderator.
Chris.
I'd respectfully consider a motion to reconsider action on the declaration of recess and continuance of the March 30, 2020 special town meeting.
I'm going to defer to Jonathan on that one. Jonathan?
Are we talking about the date, Mr. Moderator?
Yes, sir. I am talking about the date.
I think that's a good idea, Mr. Chairman. We have to modify the date that was voted on.
Reconsider, we have to roll call a motion and roll call consideration. Is that how that works? 2 votes?
Yes.
At this point, the chair will call a roll call vote for reconsideration. Mr. Mass, you have a question?
Oh, I was gonna make a motion to do that, but if you do, so moved.
Moved by Mr. Massey, seconded by the chair for roll call for reconsideration. Stephen Sullivan, aye.
John Marcy, aye.
Harry Sigenovich, aye.
Jay Johnson, aye.
So, Mr. Moderator, you want to insert the different date? What's the date we're looking at then? April 27th?
The date was originally read as April 27th. There was a Scrivener's error in my letter. The date should in fact be April 17th, which puts us in the 30-day window of this declaration.
Okay. So the motion should be to change the date in the declaration of the moderator to April 17th.
So moved.
Second by the chair. Call vote, Stephen Sullivan, aye.
John Marcy, aye.
Harry Sigenovich, aye.
Jay Johnson, aye.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, for correcting that.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
Town Administrator, want to get us back on course?
Sure. I was going to ask Representative Durant, who was good enough to join us tonight, to speak on the last bullet point about the special legislation, but I'd also, between the time that the agenda was published and tonight, I'm going to ask him to go ahead and give us a little bit of information on what he's hearing on the state level. And this could either be done now, Mr. Chairman, or we could probably put it under departmental communication. It's up to the pleasure of the board.
Well, I said greetings earlier to Rep. Durant. I don't know if it went through. It was on mute, I think. But thank you, Representative Durant, for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me tonight.
So, would the board prefer the state rep to go first, or you want to have the departmental communications finished? I have no feeling either way. It doesn't matter to me. Hearing no objection, I'll take the town administrator's suggestion and we'll continue with the town departments then. Is that what you want?
That would be fine, Mr. Chairman. If Representative Durant can just report out what he knows to the public, I think that'd be great.
Sure, I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys may have. As far as the special legislation goes that we have been talking about regarding the Stevens Linen, my last communications with the governor's office has been that they're willing to file that legislation. I think Mr. Ruder, we had spoken at some length about this, and it was they would have liked the town meeting vote. If time is of the essence, they'll do it with the vote of the board. Unfortunately, as you can kind of imagine, I hate to say, but they got bigger fish to fry right at this moment. So there's a lot of things that are going on, a lot of things that are happening pretty quickly, and so that's unfortunately not at the top of their list right now. But they are willing to do it. They're willing to move forward. We're going to see some extraordinary measures in the future regarding sessions and regarding voting. So there is a little bit of a question whether or not it needs a roll call vote, which of course, as we spoke earlier, Mr. Ruder would require that we get it done by July 31st. But we don't think at this time that is necessary. A roll call vote is probably not necessary for this. And so that's kind of where we're at right now, just waiting to kind of clear some of these things off the governor's plate, so that the office can get back to a little bit of normalness and get this legislation filed.
Thank you for that report, Rep. Durant. We appreciate it.
I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys may have. If you've got any questions regarding the ongoing emergency, I think the chief gave a good synopsis, and you guys seem to have a lot of information. The one thing I will mention that you may or may not have heard prior to the meeting, the governor has activated 2,000 National Guard troops to help out with logistics and some of the things that they do best. I wanted to stress, and the governor wants to stress, during a time like this, we're hearing a lot of that the National Guard's been called out, these kind of orders that are given. Those are completely false, and I think it's very important that everybody understands that those are completely false. The National Guard is being activated for doing the things, and I think, Mr. Rudy, you can see the National Guard does just as well as anybody else, being in MEMA as long as you have. But it's just to help out with logistics. It's just to help out with getting a lot of the things done that we need to have done in the state.
Thank you for that, Peter.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, Peter.
I thought that we could, as the fire chief and the police chief go down with their reports, and as any questions may come up, I'd like to invite Representative Durant to answer any questions that they may have. One thing I did want to mention is that we did a conference call with Charlton in the regional school district. When I say the regional school district, I mean the school superintendent, our Board of Health, the Charlton Board of Health, and the two town administrators from Charlton and our emergency management were on the call. We did a quick call today just to see how everything was going on the school side. They're essentially not going to be staffed starting next week. As Mr. Purcell mentioned, they're going forward with school lunches, whether they qualify for the 50%. I guess the population has to be, the need for school lunch, free or reduced school lunch, has to have a 50% threshold. And I think at some point the school superintendent will reach out to Representative Durant to talk about reimbursement, because there's about 130 families being served by that program right now between the two towns, and they're going to continue to do it as long as they need to do it. But at some point, I think that they'll probably contact Representative Durant to talk about helping them with reimbursement.
Mr. Rudy, yeah, we expect that. There is a lot of, and I'm sorry for being a little kind of stop and go here. I keep getting feedback in my ear. But there are a lot of proposals going forward. Things are moving really fast right now with what's being proposed, what's going to be released, and things of that nature. I think once we get past some of this, some of those things such as reimbursement for those costs will come up. And so I don't think that's going to be a big problem, but we will tackle those as they come up.
Thank you, Peter.
Mr. Chairman, before I turn it over, the other thing I wanted to mention was I've gotten a lot of, over the past day or two, I've had a couple of conversations with board members and members of the, our community are reaching out to see what they can do and how they can help, which I think is great, and I think that we'll probably take them up on that offer eventually. But I want to stress, and I want to actually make a point to let people know what we're doing inside the town hall to figure out what help the community needs. So I've appointed Michelle Jervis to reach out to our local parishes, to reach out to the Council on Aging Director, to stay in constant contact with Joshua Place, to make sure that those more vulnerable members of our community can be identified to us so that we can look to seek services or to refer them as needed. And if we get to the point where we have and right now I can tell you, and she's sitting right next to me, there has not been a big call for any services. You spoke to, she spoke as early as, 3 or 4 hours ago to the Council on Aging, right?
Right.
And
Lucille Allard at the Dudley Housing Authority, and she hasn't had any issues right now. They're kind of helping each other out. Someone needs supplies, or someone needs medication, another resident will go and get that for them, and they're helping each other out up there. As far as the other, the parishes and the churches, they haven't responded yet.
okay. So I want the board members to know, and certainly want the community to know, that we're proactively seeking ways to help people who may be in need of services. But in the absence of people actually needing it, or requiring the services, or knowing what the scope of the services they require might be, whether it be groceries or whether it may be medical attention, there's not, in other words, we don't want to ask the volunteers to volunteer to do nothing at this point. We want to save that help in that, to a time when we can identify what the need is and put them to work to address those specific needs. So I apologize for that. There are things that are happening on a daily basis that can't be placed on the agenda, so I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about that outside of my normal report.
No, I know I speak, I didn't realize Michelle earlier, but, no, the board, I'm sure feels the same, that you're the day-to-day point person in conjunction with your core group and department heads. So you take action as deemed necessary within the scope of your authority, and you let us know on the fly when possible. I don't think anybody has an objection to that. Hearing none.
Mr. Chairman, I think we can go to the fire chief now, if that's okay.
Yeah, just real quick, did anybody have any questions earlier for Rep. Durant or for Tom Purcell with the president, including the administrator, for the presentation so far? If there's no questions, then we'll go right to, you want the police chief first or fire? Fire and EMS?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you, chief.
All right, so I'll start with the FEMA reimbursement. We're up and going online with the FEMA reimbursement through MEMA. So I need all department tracking and submitting copies to me of any costs related to this virus, overtime costs, equipment. For example, Mr. Ruda had to purchase some laptops. I believe that's going to be a reimbursable expense for these mobile meetings here. Any overtime, I've already started making copies because I can already start inputting that into the system. So when the time comes way down the road, I can hopefully just hit submit and we can get our 75% reimbursement. But I'm sure we're going to have to meet a certain threshold. So anything you can attach to all departments, just submit everything to me, copies of it, and we can get going on that and be ahead of the curve on it. As of right now, our EOC is partially open, and we followed what most other towns are doing. So now we can go on Webo's EOC and input everything in there, like if we have confirmed cases in town and things of that nature. I also suggested that the administrator get the board of the chairman of the board of selectmen to sign off on a local state of emergency, because it seems like a majority of the towns are doing it. It can only help us in the long run, and it doesn't hurt us in any way. So if the chairman of the board can sign off on that, and then we can post that on the web EOC as well, and it can just help us down the road with reimbursement. Starting Sunday is when we started to have incidents. We had a cardiac arrest. I had 3 members quarantined for 3 days. The patient came back negative, and as you know, the guidance is changing every day. Sunday was a lot different than it is today. But luckily that person came back negative. All those people are back to work, and we're doing well. Starting last Tuesday, the Tuesday that just went by, the fire department has canceled all non-essential services. There are no more inspections being conducted, and we will hold that through April 7th. No new burning permits have been given out. People who have burning permits can burn, but no new permits are being issued at this time, as we don't have an online system. Of course, we have a shortage of masks, gowns, and gloves like everybody else, and we're being asked to mask up ourselves for certain calls, and we're asking to mask up and out. if we don't get some supplies soon, we're going to be in trouble because we're going to be running out, and I know everybody's short. We have come up with a policy specific to COVID-19 that I've issued to the whole department. I'm not going to go through that because it's 4 pages long. If anybody wants to see it offline, they're more than welcome to. I also talked to Chief Wayner about a security policy at the hospital. We're going to lock our ambulance and take the keys in. And also on scene, we've asked that the PD just come to the call if they're available. They don't have to get out of their cruiser, but just to sit in the ambulance to basically babysit the ambulance and make sure nobody pilfers things out of the ambulance, because I can see that coming down the road. Right now, our call volume is way down, so people are listening. That could change. I think next week it's going to flip, but we'll see. I'm also working with a local facility that I can't tell you who it is right now because I've been asked not to, for Dudley PD, Dudley EMS, and Dudley Fire. If any of these people have to quarantine due to a possible exposure, I'm working to secure a building with this in the future, but I'll know more tomorrow, just in case, so you don't go home to your families and possibly contaminate your whole family. But hopefully none of us have to be quarantined again. And I think that's all I have. Oh, the only other thing I had is Tom, was on the DPH call today, and if you're aware of any confirmed cases in town and we're responding, we're supposed to be notified through dispatch just of the address, and that's it. Like, for example, if somebody at 11 West Main Street is a positive COVID case, that's all they say. 11 West Main Street is a positive COVID case. Supposed to give any more information than that due to HIPAA, but we do have to be notified of if there's a positive case, and that was on the DPH call today. And I think that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
Any questions for the fire and EMS? Okay, hearing none, then we'll move on to the police chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. We're operating, obviously, a little bit less than business as usual. We as well have put out a policy to our guys with regards to trying to limit public contact. We're not encouraging people to make arrests unless they're absolutely necessary. Sticking more with criminal summonses and things. We're just trying to adjust to a lot of the other things that are happening. Just like the fire chief said, the biggest thing we're looking at is for more supplies and availability of those things. We're also trying to make sure we secure where test sites are for individuals that may be exposed to these things. If we have to put many of our officers offline for 14 days, that's really going to be an issue for us. So the biggest thing is to make sure that we have access to testing. I think they were talking about some places in Shrewsbury and maybe some of the hospitals that were available. So it's one of those things we're just trying to confirm all that stuff that's happening there. There's been a few issues with probably some of the information that's coming out. I think we all experienced, at least last week on Sunday night, when we got the word that all the establishments are going to close, and we have to try to go through that. And we get word Sunday night about the courts being closed for 2 days. And so then we adjusted to that with a bunch of different changes. And then the courts are supposed to be open again on Wednesday, but then Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, we get another change about the plans of how they were going to operate, and they're off till sometime in April. So some of the information that's coming out, it's coming out at odd times and really seems to be flying by the seat of its pants in some way. So the more that can get at least projected out to us sooner is better. I think that maybe that's something for Representative Durant to kind of pass on to some of the offices there, that even if they're thinking about something, if they can at least give us a heads up that, hey, we might be thinking about doing this, it might be operations rather than have us have to change gears late at night with a lot of these things as they've been happening. We've had, we're looking at some activity we had in town. We had 2 stolen vehicles and a lot of car breaks the other night, so probably taking Rahm Emanuel's old advice of never letting good crisis go to waste. Several people came up from, appeared to be out in the Connecticut area, came up and did some car breaks and stole a couple of vehicles. So really livens up the parade there. But biggest thing I'm working on is we have some of my people. I have a couple guys that are on light duty. They're working during the day. They help assist with the town hall operation there. I just was requesting our maintenance people to make sure that they focus on cleaning the area and everything else, because that's one location in our lobby where a lot of the public is coming in to do business here. So we want to try to make sure we keep all that and all the common areas clean as possible. But other than that, we're trying to scale down our public contact as far as firearms permitting and other things that are happening there. But we're going to be available to respond, and hopefully we don't get exposed to anything along the way. That's about it from my end. If there's any other questions and things, please feel free to ask.
Any questions for the police chief?
Just want to add, Mr. Chairman, I think everybody's kind of caught on, but just my experience with these meetings in a short time is if you're not talking, if you can mute your speaker, that helps, because the feedback comes through, and that's what ends up crossing up some of the conversation. And when people talk, we don't really hear the full thing. So just a point of observation, I guess.
Okay, thanks, chief. Before we move on, I'm just going to turn it over to Peter Durant before we get to the end of the meeting, make sure he's got everything out on the table that he wants to say. So at this point, Peter Durant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to mention a couple of other things here, mainly for people who are watching. Most of the calls that we're getting that come into the office now pertain to unemployment, what people can do, what small businesses can do. So I just wanted to kind of put out there for anybody that may be watching or looking for information from this video cast, that as far as unemployment goes, we have reduced some of the hurdles to get unemployment. I think just today alone there were over 30,000 unemployment claims put in. So the claims are really getting put in, which is going to really overburden the system. But if you have the need to put in a claim, if you become unemployed, I would encourage everybody to put in a claim. Now, some of the questions that I've been seeing come in have pertained to am I employment, if I was a part-time employee, or if I'm a sole proprietor that runs their own business. And the simple litmus test for unemployment right now that's been put out is if you received a W-2 and not a 1099, but if you received a W-2, so even if you're your own employer, if you've given yourself a W-2, you are eligible for unemployment. So that's the very simple litmus test that's out there, and I would encourage people that if they're being displaced, if they're temporarily out of work because of this, go to the website and apply for unemployment benefits. The other thing I want to mention is for businesses at this time, some of the regulations that have come out, and I'm going to read them off here so I make sure I get this correct. Some of the new measures for small businesses, which are defined as those who paid less than $150,000 in 2019 in sales and meal tax or room occupancy taxes. So if you paid less than $150,000 in 2019, you're going to be considered a small business. Your taxes, which were due for March, April, and May, will now be due on June 20th. So we're pushing back that time for those taxes to be due. All penalties and interest that would otherwise apply will be waived. And the Department of Revenue is currently drafting emergency regulations to put some other relief in place. But I wanted to bring those up because we're getting a lot of those questions come into the office. And so I want anybody who's watching this to know that. One last thing is that there are some small business low interest loans that are available right now through empoweringsmallbusiness.org. which is the Massachusetts Growth Capital Corporation, but you can get a loan for up to $75,000 with no payments for 6 months. It is an interest-bearing loan, and I think at 3%. It looks like it's at 3%. And so if your business is having some difficulties because of this, if you're not available to get, if you're not able to get unemployment insurance, this might be a route for you to go. Up to $75,000. Typical businesses include real estate investment, multi-level marketing, adult entertainment, cannabis, and firearms. So those are just some of the ones that aren't able to get those loans. But I just wanted to kind of put that out there because we're getting a lot of calls at the office about those. If you have questions, if anybody needs to reach me or my office, they can call the office in Boston at 617-722-2060, or they can email me at peter.durant@mahouse.gov. That's peter.durant@mahouse.gov. We get a lot of requests, so I ask people to be patient. Either myself or my fabulous chief of staff, Ann Gaudreau, will be in touch with you as soon as we can. We're usually, but they come in kind of quick. So I just wanted to give you that information, put that out there, Mr. Chairman. So thank you very much for your for indulging me on that.
Thank you, Rep. Durant. Jonathan, quick question with what Peter just briefed us on. At a minimum, can we put on our website or social media regarding the unemployment claim? As he stressed, if you get a W-2, you're eligible, but a 1099 not.
Yeah, we definitely will do that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks again, Peter.
You bet. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Town Administrator, what do we have next?
Well, I think we've pretty much covered everything. I want to stress, particularly people on this call, but the town hall in general, and the staff, and our highways kept on working, water sewer keeps on working. The town hall staff has been unbelievable. The public safety, they're used to this kind of pressure. But I can't stress enough, particularly to the public and the board members, how much people have adapted and changed the way they do things and really done 110% to keep things up and running. And they've learned to adapt to things overnight, basically. So I asked for the public's continued patience. I asked for the board's continued support, and I just want you to be very much aware that everybody's working at 110% to see us through this.
Mr. Chairman, can I jump in for a second?
Chief.
I just want to echo what Mr. Ruda just said, but also too give him a lot of credit and kudos on what he's been doing here, because it's been certainly, this is unprecedented territory for all of us. I haven't seen anything like this in my 30 plus years, and certainly being a new administrator, it's been a challenge. So he's done a very good job. This has gone on. The communication's been excellent between all the departments. We've had regular meetings on things, testing the system amongst all of us. So it's been really good. One thing I know that was just talked about, and I didn't know, it's probably have to yield to the fire chief, but did they have to vote on the local state of emergency? I know that was supposed to get brought up, and I don't know if that just got missed. I just didn't want to get missed.
No, that doesn't require a vote. It just requires a signature from the chairman of the board.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, I didn't brought up to no pay.
No, it doesn't require a vote.
Just question to you, Dean. It's just similar to what we did a few years ago with that October declaration, right? I came down and we signed it.
We just need a signature, chairman of the board.
Right.
And Mr. Ruder or myself can even come to your house and stand at the front door if you want to sign it at your house.
I got it. Well, post office is still deemed essential personnel, so I'm on the road from 8 to 4:30 every day anyway. So I'll get down there either 8 a.m. tomorrow or right after work, and I'll take care of it with the administrator. So anything else to bring up at this time? Again, I just want to emphasize and reaffirm the core group that I spoke to on a conference call last week with Jonathan. And again, I also, on behalf of the board, thank Mr. Ruda. It's a tough situation, tough to get into. All department heads, all town employees who are showing up and doing their job in a manner. Just be safe, be smart, be vigilant, and stay on top of public information. But again, I thank everyone that did tonight and that participate on a daily basis. That's what really makes things go in this town. I really appreciate it. I know everybody else does too. Board member comments? As you go in order, so I'll go to Mr. Massey. He's raising his hand.
Okay, like we always do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple things. I think social media is probably going to be a very important way that we get stuff out there. A lot of people just don't, they go to our website, but it's less common. I think people are on Facebook all the time and using the Town of Dudley Facebook page for not just these alerts, but really like when meetings, these types of meetings are going to be, and agendas. I think that would be a good way to, help us get them involved in the process. So that's number one. Two, my fellow board member Carrie, had a birthday today, so I wanted to make sure that we called that out as well. Dave. Thank you, Chairman.
John, thank you.
We count with both.
You're on. Thanks.
Straight a week away here.
I think we're okay to adjourn, Mr. Chairman, unless there's anything else. You have any further direction? You got us all on the phone now.
Does Carrie or Jay have anything?
No, last call for board member comments.
I'd just like to thank the first responders for doing what they need to do. Obviously, has reason to use supplies that might be critical to their continued health and their job. Please think twice about it.
Thanks,
That's
Jay.
all.
Mr. Chairman?
Tom?
Yes, just one thing I forgot to, it's good news. Tri-Valley Elder Service, their Meals on Wheels program is going to continue. I've spoken with a representative from Tri-Valley Elder. As long as they're able to, they will continue with that program.
That's good to hear. I've had a few calls on that, Tom.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
Okay.
All right, so in the absence of any other questions, comments, or concerns, Chair will call for a roll call vote to adjourn. Stephen Sullivan, aye.
Aye.
Carrie Siganovich, aye.
Jay Johnson, aye.
At this point, the meeting is adjourned, and I thank everyone for participating and people at home for their patience and their understanding in a difficult time. Check on your elderly neighbors. That's all I have to add. Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.